Hello, baseball family. Matthew here with another episode. Told you. Always two takes. I can't even say episode properly now. What the hell's wrong with me? You're listening to the British Baseball Podcast. Hello, baseball family. Matthew here with Jake Mitchell from Manchester Baseball Club, and we're here with another episode of the British Baseball Podcast. Jake is originally from Boston, and he's going to tell us a bit more about his time over in the UK and the British baseball scene, and hopefully some of the things from the stateside as well. Jake, how are we doing?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. Cheers. We're just having a bit of chat off air before we started rolling. I'm actually quite a tired boy today. It's been a long day, been up since 5:30. It's now 8:15 in the evening with the little one. So, yeah, I've had a full day of work. I'm almost ready for bed, but, I thought, let's chat, let's have a nice natter, and let's have some good baseball feels to send me off into a nice, relaxed evening. Don't know about yourself, Jake, but I'm very much looking forward to this conversation.
No, me too. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Well, you've been asking me long enough. It's only seems right. I had a gap in my schedule. So for those that don't know you, Jake, why don't you take us back a bit into the past and tell us a bit about your home life and where you grew up?
Yeah, no problem. I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. I wasn't born there. I was actually born in Wolfboro, New Hampshire, in the White Mountains, but my parents moved down when I was 6 months old. So my birth certificate says one thing, but my accent says another. I had a good, fun life, upbringing and stuff like that. I come from a family where my mother was very athletic. She used to figure skate. She played basketball. She was a majorette, which I don't know if that was ever a thing in England, but it's basically somebody who twirls a baton and marches in a parade.
Oh yeah.
My dad, on the other hand, my dad was born deaf, so I had a hearing impaired father my whole life, which wasn't too bad when it came to he was always able to read what the other team was saying and the other coaches by reading their lips, if that makes sense. He still can, but I'm a little older now and he's not coming to my games, is he?
No.
But so the way that it goes is I've always been told my entire life that when my Nana and my Papa on my mother's side, when they came up to Wolfboro to the hospital to meet me for the first time when I was born, that my Papa bought me a little brand new Boston Red Sox hat and a glove. And my father says that I didn't grow into the glove until I was about 4 or 5 years old, but the hat I started wearing when I was 2. So it took some time to grow into it, but that was my first gift ever. I mean, to be honest, that's where, I grew up in a good household, but when I think of baseball, my time playing it, my time learning about it, I'd probably say my Papa was a big factor in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. After he passed away in 2008, I believe it was, we were going through his stuff and we found, those old the photo album books.
Yeah.
Found a photo album book and it had all the newspaper clippings from my time playing, not just baseball, but also, like American football. I played a little bit of ice hockey when I was really young. That was too expensive of a sport, really, for my parents. And basketball and stuff like that. But we found all the sport clippings and we didn't even know it. Ever since the first time I was in the newspaper, he was clipping them out and he was saving them. It was pretty exciting. To be fair, I was never given that. I think my mother had it and I don't know where that album is. Now that I think about it, I'd like it. I'd like to
Definitely.
see it,
Sounds got some interesting memories in it. So how much of an influence on you was he?
Big time. To be fair, and I'm saying this in a good way. I mean, my mother never missed a game. She didn't, but she was also kind of like the cornerstone of the family. She I couldn't get to a baseball game without her. She used to go down to, we have this field outside of Boston is a town called Wakefield, and that's where I grew up, Wakefield, Massachusetts. It's Metro Boston. It'd be like, it's almost like, Earlham or Didsbury to Manchester. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's part of the city, but it's North Shore. And anyway, 2 blocks away from my house was a big field called Moulton Playground. And Moulton Playground ended up being one of the fields in Wakefield where they would play AAU baseball. It was a big full-size baseball diamond. I don't know what right field was. I'm a righty, so I didn't really care what right field fence was, but left field fence down the line was at 385. It was enormous, 385. Center field was probably about 600 feet, but there wasn't a fence there. It was just a big field, if that makes sense. But my mother used to come, she used to bring me down and play catch with me and stuff. My dad was usually working, and that's how that story goes, really. No hard feelings, that's just how it was. But my papa, he's the one that would play catch with me, and he gave me, my papa gave me a book, and it's called The Science of Hitting by Ted Williams. And he got it for me. I don't even think I could comprehend, fully read that book at the age that he gave it to me, but I had it my entire life growing up. I eventually ended up reading it. It's an older book that Ted Williams wrote, so it wasn't really modern at the time, but it was a great book. But he was obsessed with Ted Williams. That was his guy. So I kind of grew up with that obsession.
Yeah. I was just going to ask, is that where your Ted Williams obsession came from?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much, and that was, I never got to see Ted Williams play, but my papa did. And to me, that's a part of a fulfilling life right there. You know what I mean? Healthy family and being able to see Ted Williams play at Fenway Park. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Did you attend many games at Fenway?
Yeah, I've never kept count. To be fair, honestly, I've probably seen over 100 games there in my time, later on I went to college and I was an English major, and I was and I was doing a writing thing before, and I was trying to describe like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And it was supposed to be a descriptive writing practice or whatever. So you had to be you're basically taking a small thing and trying to describe it immensely. And for some reason, the first thing that popped into my mind was when you're walking up the ramp in the grandstands, and slowly you're just walking up and you see the green monster start rising. You know what I mean? And you get up there, and finally the field, the green field is right in view, and the military green monster and stuff like that, and how beautiful Fenway Park is. And that's what I wrote about. I don't know what my grade was on the project. I really don't, but I've been to Fenway quite a lot before they renovated it, before there were ever monster seats, before they added things in, when it was still just bare bones, Fenway in the 80s and 90s, when the Red Sox were horrible.
Yeah.
like they were last year, but when they had a stretch of being horrible.
Yeah.
Do
you remember your very first game?
So I don't remember my very first game, but my earliest memory of a game is when we went and saw the Red Sox. I can't tell you who they were playing. Roger Clemens was still on the team. Roger Clemens wasn't pitching, and I'm not making this up. He wasn't pitching, but with the hit come out of, was somebody that was telling the parents, we were yelling for Roger Clemens to come out because we wanted an autograph, and our parents were going down with the ball. And this is before the game when they were doing batting and stuff like that. And Roger wouldn't come out. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that Roger had somebody speak on his behalf that he would sign autograph balls for $25.
That's weird. Like if that was to happen today, I wouldn't be surprised, but that seems like a bit of a thing back in the day.
Yep. And that day I went from liking Roger Clemens. It upset me. I went from liking Roger Clemens to, they had a left fielder at the time, Boston Red Sox. His name was Mike Greenwell. And he used to wear these sunglasses with flip up shades, right? So he'd flip them up and then he'd put them down when he was, when there was a pop fly or whatnot. And he used to wear bright green wristbands with his number on it in red. And my dad got me a pair of the wristbands. I saw him just make a catch. I mean, to be fair, when I was a kid, I probably thought it was amazing, but that day I ended up switching over and I liked Meg Greenwell. That was my new guy. And my dad got me the wristbands and I came home and I wore those wristbands to school and all around the yard. That's my first memory of a game at Fenway Park.
That's brilliant. I've never been to the States, so I've never really seen a live game, but I can remember the first time I went to football with my dad and my sister, and it was Bolton Wanderers at the old Burnham Park versus Liverpool in a friendly, and we won 4-1. And that was it then for me. I was buying that way, but I remember like what you're saying then about going into the stadium and seeing things. I remember walking past the ticket office through the turnstiles and it's smelling like urine really bad because it's right near toilets.
Yeah.
Getting a pie and a program. I've actually found a program in a charity shop for my very first game and I bought it for £1. Got it lying around somewhere. I'll send you a picture of it. And that just going back through that just brought back so many memories for me. But when you're saying then about charging £25 for a program, my grandma was a member at a gym near Bolton's old stadium, and it was frozen up. They used to train on the pitch, and it frozen over one day. And they were training in her gym, not just like treadmill. So this is like the early 90s. So none of the sports psychologists and that sort of stuff. This is when you could probably get near a football and talk to them. And she said she was on a treadmill next to some of the players, and she got a piece of paper from reception, and she wouldn't let any of them leave the gym until they'd signed this bit of paper for me and my sister.
That's cool.
Yeah. My grandma held them hostage.
That's really cool. That's a good grandma right there.
Oh yeah. She
I don't even think my papa didn't even do anything like that.
Imagine like going to the toilet next to him and just being like, "You're not leaving this toilet until you sign his baseball." Like, stick you £25.
That's cool.
Yeah, she's 93 now, and she only in the last couple of years stopped going because she had to. She got a season ticket. She used to go to all the away games. She used to go Wimbledon and camp out and all sorts of stuff.
No kidding.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, no holding back.
Yeah, I mean, I ended up getting. I got autographs when I was younger. I remember me. See, this sounds very biased, right? I'm from Boston, and then all I'm talking about is the Red Sox. But it's only because I didn't come from a family that traveled to other stadiums and did a thing like that. You know, I was able to go to a few other stadiums when I got older on my own dollar. You know what I mean? Paying my way. But I remember getting this is going back to late 80s, maybe early 90s, but like Jody Barrett, he was a Red Sox player. I got his autograph. No, I'm sorry, Marty Barrett. I got Jody Reed's autograph. So it's Jody Reed and then Marty Barrett. That was 2 separate times. And I got to meet Jim Rice, but he wasn't signing autographs, but I got to meet him. And we did once have a Polaroid picture of me and Jim Rice. He was down by Pesky's pole. So he was on the field. I was in the stands. And Pesky pole, if you don't know, it's the yellow foul pole. If you follow the foul line down the right hand at Fenway, so you have the green monster on the left. On the right hand is a tall yellow pole, and that's Pesky's pole, named after Johnny Pesky. But yeah, I mean, and that's it. I mean, I honestly never got anybody's autograph. And then the older I got, I wasn't going for autographs. You know what I mean? I never, when I was a kid, I used to bring my baseball glove, hoping I'd catch a foul ball. And then when I got older, I never brought my baseball glove at all. And I never caught one, but I've been with 2 separate people on separate occasions where they caught one. So it's come that close, but I just never had the opportunity, it wasn't on my side.
Why did you decide to stop taking a glove? Is it like an unwritten rule then? Like over here, if you're wearing a football jersey, probably past the age of 18 or 19, you won't get a player's name on the back of it because it's a bit immature. It might be younger than that. I don't know. Is that sort of a thing for baseball? You just don't take your glove after the age of 25 or something?
I don't know. To be fair, I mean, there's videos out there now of dads holding a baby and a bear and then catching a foul ball barehanded. So if you're the next guy on the screen and you've got a glove on your hand, it doesn't look like a lucky day for you, even though you got a ball, you know?
Yeah.
No, but I mean, to be fair, I mean, I'm guessing that it just wasn't cool. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
You know, when you start becoming like a teenager and you know, it's not as cool anymore, you know.
Yeah.
But we used to go a lot with a lot of the games where my father knew somebody, this old guy my dad used to do, you know, like business with and stuff. My dad owned a company in the town I grew up, and he worked there. So he worked in the ticket office. So he had season tickets, but because of his age, he barely went. Plus he worked. Does that make sense? So he worked
Yeah.
there. So he was like semi-retired, so he wasn't always there, but he had season tickets. He used to give them to his son and his grandson to go. But when they couldn't go, they used to give them to my dad. So that was a lot of it. Was even though my dad didn't really play baseball with me and do it that way, and he didn't get to my games until I got a little older and a little better. Um, you know, he did after work, he would take me to games, you know. It was a 10-minute train ride right from downtown Wakefield right into Boston, and then you just jump on the green line and take the green line and over to oh God, it's not Fenway. I can't believe I can't think of it. Um anyway, it'll come to me probably later. I'll just randomly pop it out. Um but yeah, and we just go to the game. It was very, very, very simple the way that it was. The green lines are underground, right? Or
Mm.
subway in Boston. Sorry, they're colored. So the green line's one of them. No. But oh, Kenmore. You get off at Kenmore. That's what it is. So there's a Kenmore stop and then a Fenway stop, but Fenway Park's not at Fenway. It's at the Kenmore stop in Kenmore Square. Anyway,
Uh,
but yeah,
anyway,
and and then we used to go a lot because of Wakefield Little League. The Little League, you play, you sign up, you play Little League in town, and we'd have an American League and a National League, full teams. Each league would have anywhere from 8 to 10 teams. That's how many kids there were.
mm,
And every team, we got to go to like 2 or 3 games a year as a team. So, you know, it would be random. You can't pick the games, but it would be random. And we had nosebleed seats way out, way out in the bleachers, you know, and, behind, you know, you know, I mean, I'm talking about way out. I'm talking about like at Fenway Park at night games, they would open up like center field. So just to the right, they would open it up because it's usually covered during the day, right? Because of the glare of the sun.
okay.
That's what would cover. Anyway, they would cover those seats. And then at night, those seats would be open. So it'd be an additional like three. And that's where they'd put us kids way back there. You know, but I'm 20 or 30 games just because of like Little League baseball
Yeah.
for free.
Can't beat a bit of free baseball.
Yeah. Yeah, not bad.
So how old were you when you first started playing?
I mean, there's it's just a picture. There's a picture of me when I was about 3 years old with a bat over my
Mm,
shoulder with a little, it wasn't a Red Sox jacket, but it was like a baseball style American type jacket of the time with a Red Sox hat on. Um, I mean, I did the typical American baseball trail. So you start off in T-ball and you usually do that for a couple of years. Um, and then you move on to farm league. That's what it's called. And farm league is where you don't use a tee anymore. And the opposing coach throws the ball to you from the pitching mound. But next to him is a kid who's like the pitcher, you know what I mean? But he's not pitching the ball.
yeah.
Um, and then you play like that. And then after that, you go up to minor league and then major league. And then you have something called prep. And then after prep is Babe Ruth. And Babe Ruth is like the last of Little League in America. And by that time, you're a teenager and you're even, you're a freshman or a sophomore in high school, which is like 14, 15 years old.
Mm,
Um, and which when I got to that point, I stopped playing Babe Ruth because I made varsity baseball. So there was too much of a commitment to play varsity baseball. as a 14-year-old, I was playing with 18-year-olds and 17-year-olds. So I made the team. Now I didn't start my whole first year. I didn't start. And then as a sophomore, I only got a little bit of playing time. But I made the team. And then junior and senior year, I started every game. And that one, but you had to commit fully basically to school. And that's what you wanted to do too, because that was your life at the time. Your life is now school. No longer like the town sports. It's now the school sport. Play against other towns and whatnot. And yeah, great. I mean, I played baseball, and then that's just that. But once you hit majors, which is from 10 to 12 years old, when you hit majors, I played minors for 1 year at the age of 9. And then when I did minor league tryouts the following year to get put on another team, I got drafted into the major league draft, if that makes sense. So, and I'll never forget how scared I was, because you just get a phone call one day, and but not to me, it's actually to like my parents, because they answer the phone.
Yeah.
And my future coach for that season is calling up just saying, "Oh yeah, we drafted your son. He did really good at tryouts. We drafted him. We want to play with him." But it's when you're 16 and you're playing with 18-year-olds, it seems like a smaller age gap than when you're 10 or 11 and playing with a 12-year-old. Like 12-year-olds at that time, some of them are they're having growth spurts and they're so big, you know what I mean? And it's just, and I remember being scared. I remember our first practice, I got scared, wouldn't go out on the field. So my mother brought me home, and then they talked to the coach and they gave me another try to come back. That's how scared I was. I was that scared that I was intimidated by the other kids. I didn't know any of them. They're all older than me. I didn't know them.
How did you get over that hump then?
I just kind of did it. Honestly, I remember being scared and not practicing the very first practice, but I did continue with that team and practiced. We actually won. I played majors for 3 years. We made it to the town series the first year, and then the last year. We won it the first year. The second year we missed it because of the playoffs, and then we lost it in my third year, my final year. So I was on a good team. We were the White Sox, so I was on a good team. And yeah, I don't know how I got over that. I mean, I don't want to be cheesy and be like, oh, it's my love for baseball or something like that. But honestly, if I didn't go and play, I no longer had a minor league team to go to, because I was in that draft, and they already had their rosters filled. So I wouldn't have been able to play, baseball. And it wasn't until that year that I got introduced to other types of leagues, and I started playing multiple leagues. So I would play Jimmy Fund League, which is the Jimmy Fund is like a cancer research for children type of thing. And then I ended up playing a little bit of AAU, about 2 years later, traveling teams and stuff like that. We got to play all over New England, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Vermont, upstate New York. We got to play at like Doubleday Field at in Cooperstown, which was cool. Just kind of experience people that you never heard of and you'll never see them again. Play against people like that. See some amazing baseball players. As a kid, seeing some amazing same age, you know what I mean, baseball players, not professionals, but yeah, it was good. It was a lifestyle for me. To be fair, as I got older and I got better, my father committed a lot to traveling, and he committed a lot. And we would just go away for the weekend for one game. It would be in Vermont, and we'd have no other choice. We'd have to spend like that. And we would.
So you had some good times.
Yeah, good times.
Indeed. So take you back to when you said you're 12-year-old playing with 18-year-olds. Sorry, 14-year-old.
Well, 12. When I was 10 years old, I was playing in an age group of 10, 11, and 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
By the time I was 12, I was still playing with 10, 11, and 12-year-olds in majors, but in traveling teams, I was playing up to like 14 years old.
Yeah.
So it was an older age gap.
Yeah.
or age group.
How hard did you find it to fit in?
By that time I was all right.
Yeah.
I had a growth spurt. Honestly, I'm just over 6 feet tall, right? You've seen me. And I've been this tall since I was about 13. I wasn't as fat. I was literally, I was a beanpole. I was skinny, but I had a growth spurt. And to be fair, that gave me quite the advantage at that young age in like
Yeah.
the preteen group with my baseball, because suddenly I was just stronger for no reason and bigger. You know what I mean? And it gave me quite an advantage at that time.
Yeah.
But I didn't find it hard. I found it hard when I was 10. I found it hard. By the time I was 12, I mean, I had confidence built up. I think that's what it was. People were telling me that I was good. You know, I went from being a right fielder to playing third base, you
Yeah.
know, so I was somebody that they just put out in the outfield, you know, because they needed to put me somewhere, to being the starting third baseman, because, you know, I had a heck of an arm, and I could field. And for some reason at that age, I think I didn't have common sense, but I wasn't nervous at all about a line drive
Mm.
or, you know, a hard hit ground ball or something like that. Wasn't nervous. And because of that, it benefited me. I stayed in front of the ball, you know, I at least stopped the play from being something larger than like a single, or I made the play, you know, and whatnot. So I built up my confidence, you know, and yeah, I mean, I think it's that my hitting came along too, you know, so that was good. I also, it's funny, you know me, so it might be funny, but I was also a pitcher for a few years, which now if you think of me as a pitcher, that's the most ridiculous thing in the world, you know. But I just, for that age group and for our team and the people we're playing against and stuff, I had I had a much more advanced arm at that age. When I got older, I mean, I couldn't pay a coach to allow me to pitch, you know. But when I was younger, I had no choice really.
So you've been over in Manchester for a few years now. Were you playing in Boston all the way up to coming over to Manchester?
No, no. I to be completely honest, I didn't play for last time I played. All right, so um played a little. I played for the Wakefield Merchants for a little amateur team, adult league. It was, I couldn't commit really to it at the time, and that was in my early 20s. The last time I played competitively, which I count, I was 21 years old. And it was my sophomore year at UMass Boston. And yeah, and then baseball ended because I had let's say I had a minor, a little more than minor, medical issue that happened, or condition, during baseball, and whatnot. But I didn't play since then. I mean, I always watched it. I still went to games. I still, you know, 2003 was horrible for the Red Sox in the postseason because of Aaron Boone. 2004, we won the World Series and we beat the Yankees after being down, you know, 0-3 in the playoffs. And I was able to, you know, I still love the game and whatnot. I wasn't able to play. I did try softball for a season, and I just wasn't my thing. I don't know. I just didn't really carry on. And then I came out here. When I moved to Manchester, I moved here in 2017. Is when I officially moved here. After meeting my wife and getting married and whatnot. And I reached out. I don't know. Something was missing. I'm not gonna lie, something was missing. And I just sat there and I Googled. I was like, baseball near me, you know, and the Manchester Baseball Club came up. And there's a Facebook, you know, group, or page, I should say. And I logged on to that, and I believe it was Brian. Brian's the one that responded.
Yeah.
And you know, just very, you know, I'm like, can I come down? Meanwhile, I don't have a glove. I don't have, you know, cleats. I don't have anything. And he's like, yeah, just come down, you know. And I came down to Withenshaw Park where we play, and that was the first time I met anybody. I remember Johnny was there. Both, Ian was there, John, you know what I mean? Brian was there. And then from that day, I don't know. I just stuck with it, up until, to be fair, up until last year. Last year, I was more of a volunteer than I was the previous years, just because having a second baby, and lockdown previously, you know what I mean? And it wasn't fair on my wife. And she
Yeah.
asked me not so politely if I would, you know, try to be home more, I guess,
Yeah.
so I had to man up and do that. I still got to get a game in last year. I went and saw a couple games, went down, supported both the A's and the B's. Actually, I think the B's were playing the C's one game that I went down, so also the C's, and whatnot, But yeah, that's how I got involved.
Yeah. So take me back then to when you were searching for baseball near me. How optimistic were you in finding something?
So I knew there was softball. I knew there was softball. The only reason I knew there was softball is because my wife and I went for a walk down like I want to say it was the Mersey, but it ended up being over by Poswood,
Yeah. Yeah.
and where they have the Poswood School over there,
Mhm.
they play softball. So I saw them playing softball. You know what I mean? Legit uniforms, co-ed softball. I knew that, but I'm not gonna lie, I didn't want softball. I'm that stubborn. I was like, cool, they have softball here, but I don't. I'm not interested in that, And not to mention either. I mean, coming over here, it's not. I'm an adult. I had a business that I started here that I took from America and I continued here. That was in the very beginning stages, so I was really trying to focus on that. But other than that, I just had a baby on the way and a wife, and no friends, you know. Um, and I don't mean that in like some pathetic, sad way. I didn't, all my friends are back in America,
Yeah.
and I think I just needed like I needed that, to meet, just to meet people and hang out with people and, see what happens, start new friendships and relationships and stuff like that. And to be quite honest, I mean, you and I met Matt, and Brian and I are close, and Cam, and Maji, and I've been able to do that. You know what I mean? Um, to be fair, probably the best thing I've gotten out of Manchester baseball is the friendships that I have now. You
Yeah.
know, um, I mean, I've been on been on holidays with a couple of the guys. You know what I mean? Like, not big holidays, because again, I am married and I have kids. But I mean, if the wife gives me permission for a long weekend, that's a thumbs up to go. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so and you want to take advantage of that while you still got it.
Exactly.
But I mean, yeah, I think it's a great club. I do. Um, Much different than America. I'm used to, and I don't mean this in a mean way or disrespectful way. I'm used to so much organization on the outside of things that when you join, everything is smooth. I don't know if that makes sense, but I mean smooth, like smooth, just, and then I learned here, it's more of like, it's more of, it's a commitment, but it's not a commitment to come train. It's not a commitment to show up to every game. It's a commitment for the guys, and girls that are running the show, trying to get umpires. You know what I mean? Now we don't
Yeah.
have an umpire, so we have to find somebody who, is skilled or has trained to be an umpire, and get somebody, and do things like that. And in the beginning, I think I wasn't frustrated. I just think I was a little arrogant. My arrogant American personality that can come off sometimes, especially with people that don't know me. And I mean, since then, it's just it's what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've accepted, but not just have I accepted it, but like I can see, especially from help, managing the A's, 2 seasons ago and stuff. Um, there's a lot on everybody, on the coaches, on the managers, on the club, and the president, everybody. Um, and that's not even saying that there's a lot on the players themselves for showing up. and having to play or train and try to put in that commitment too, you know? So it's different in that sense than what I ever saw in America. But then again, we're not in America, are we?
No,
You know?
it's funny you should say that about your personality. I remember the first time I met you in training, I was absolutely terrified of you.
Nah, really?
Yeah, big time. I tell you why, because it's really daft. But every time, because like when I first got there, it was like J Rod was there,
Yeah.
a few like experienced people, and I was sort of looking at who was really handy, and I was just watching people to see who I could learn from. And I was watching you, but I was watching like your hands and your arms, and I sort of looked up and like met eye contact with you, and you just sort of like looking back at me as like, oh, he's probably just seen me staring at him for 5 minutes, and you don't know who I am, and I'm just like staring at you, and I was just like, oh, I need to get out of the way. So I just sort of like went off and did my own thing. And then every time I turned around, you were just sort of there. And I was like, I'm just getting in your way constantly. I just felt like every time I popped, I was like, oh, I've dropped a ball, and I'd run off and go and get it. And I stand up and I turn around and you were there, like trying to throw something. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And it's like scarper off like a mouse.
Oh man, to be honest, I don't, I don't remember any of that. I don't remember,
No, because
which is a
it's
good thing
nothing.
because
Yeah.
yeah, because that means you weren't in my way and I wasn't thinking
No,
any of that stuff. That's
no.
funny. I've known you for all these years now and I never knew that. Never knew that.
I wasn't sure what I was going to tell you.
I'd like to say, well, it's funny because I'd like to say, I joke with Brian about it a lot,
Mm,
I'll just, I'll see the guys and I'll go back to Brian and I'll be like, yeah, I don't think they like me, and it's not because I'm being, I'm just, I don't know. I still do have a little bit of a different, it was hard being a manager
mm,
and being a manager. I honestly was like, well, the guys who show up, regardless if they're the best, they're going to play. They're the ones that are going to start. You know what I mean? Because they're showing up. And when you're trying to win a league, especially in a division where the year I was managing, we had Cartmel, Liverpool was on their game, and we still had Sheffield, who's now moved on, up to nationals basically, right? So
yeah,
it was a very good, Northwest League there,
yeah,
and and we need the best players to play. And I didn't always look at it that way. I was like, I would rather know that the guys who show up for training are starting. You know what I mean? Um, and then to stay competitive, you can't necessarily do that.
yeah,
Um, and it would sometimes butt heads with people, wouldn't it? It was one of those type, one of those things. And to be fair, I had to have guys off to the side. You know what I mean? Not so much players, more friends, and even guys from, you know, you know, Dave Gould, John and Ian really helped. You know what I mean? Because they were almost neutral. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And just kind of being like, what do you want to do? Like it's not that way here. It's not that way. These people are signing up to play something to go have fun. And I was like, yeah, I was like, you can have fun and be competitive at the same time, But now I get it more. I do. I understand it better. I think it was just I had to lose that I just had to lose that mentality,
yeah.
you
Is it
know.
difficult to adapt to a different mindset after like having that competitive edge for so long?
Yeah, I think it's just repetitiveness, right? It's just repetitiveness. I didn't just one day, talk to somebody and they gave me some advice and I said, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that from now on. It was more like I had to hear it a few times and I
Mm,
had to practice it, you know. But I mean, honestly, I was real proud of those guys that year. And a few of those guys that are still with the team on the A's are now some of their best players, you know. So, Josh and Peter, you know,
yeah,
to pick out two of them, I mean, unbelievable. And they were guys that showed up, I think to be fair, I think Peter was still in medical school and he was still showing up to training every week. So we started him every week. And now he's one of their best players on Manchester,
yeah.
you
It's
know.
cracking lad, cracking player.
Yeah. And you know, um, I think it's great. I plan on I plan on continuing to get involved, especially now with my son. I'm not going to force him to play. Nobody ever forced me to play. You know what I mean? I'm not going to force my son to play. I would love it if he wanted to play. I would love it. If my daughter wants to play, she can play. To be fair, my daughter's she's got a hell of an arm.
Yeah.
So we'll see, yeah, we'll see. If she wants to play, I'll bring her right down. She still has a few years though. But I'm going to stay involved. I think my playing days are over. I do. But I would love to get back into maybe an assistant coaching role and be able to continue with the team. It doesn't have to be the A's. It could be the B's. It could be the C's. Maybe I could help develop, now that I think people know me more on a personal level and stuff like that. Maybe it would be more accepting than being that intimidating factor guy that nobody knew,
Yeah.
because I'm not that. I am loud. I will say that I'm loud. And I blame it on the fact that I grew up with a father who was hearing impaired. That's my excuse. I don't know if that's the truth, but that's my excuse.
Yeah.
I've been yelling my whole life, so why stop now?
Indeed. Yeah. What have been some of your favorite memories then from your time within British baseball?
I like the traveling. Let me rephrase that. I don't like actually waking up early on a Sunday and the whole day, half of it is baseball and the other half is driving. That I don't like. What I do like is that whenever we go to games for carpooling, you get guys in, people raise their hand and say, I'll drive. And then everybody jumps in with them. And that's how you get to know people, that's how I've gotten to know my good friends to the point where we're friends now outside of baseball and stuff like that. I mean, when we beat, when the A's, when we were playing for the AA championship against Liverpool, and we beat them 2-3, 2 out of 3 games, we beat them on their turf in Liverpool. That was a good feeling, especially since it was the end of the season. I think the weekends got mixed up by a week or something like that. So a couple of our star guys were on holiday. So they weren't even there. And we still were able to, get through it and stuff like that. And, that was a great feeling, that season I got to hit a couple of my, my first, second and third home run, since I was 20 years old, you know what I mean? 19, 20 years old. I mean, I don't care who you are. It's still a great feeling when you do that. Doesn't matter who it's against. You know what I mean? I mean, it's still, it kind of makes you a little kid again, it brings you back to that joy of the game, and what it's about and stuff like that. And we got to meet, I really enjoyed meeting other guys. Like I got to meet other guys from other teams where now when I see them, we say hi, you know what I mean? And we can have a conversation, and then when I coached, we'd go and play those teams again. And now one of those guys is now their coach or their manager. And we're meeting at home plate before the game and exchanging lineups and stuff like that. And it's almost like, you make these, it's not even friendships with everybody, but I mean, you make these connections, these positive connections, and it's through the game of baseball. Everybody's there for a reason. We could all be doing other things, couldn't we? People could be playing Sunday league. They could be playing cricket during that time of year. They could be at home with their family. They could be working and making extra money. They could be sleeping in, but they're not. You know what I mean? They've all come out to play. It's beautiful,
Yeah. Well, with all the people that you've come across and all the connections that you've made and all the people that have offered you advice along the way, who would make your Mount Rushmore of baseball people? So this question is 4 influential people on your baseball journey and why.
All right. If I go back to majors, if I go back to when I was 10 years old, I tried out for minors and I got drafted for the town White Sox, right? I make it sound like it's some big professional, I know you've interviewed and talked to a lot of good players who have played on some great teams and had some great experiences. And I'm sitting here being like, yeah, when I got drafted in majors for the White Sox, but it was at the edge of town, it sounds like bullshit, but no, but when I, but my coach that drafted me, his name was Bill Cass, and he was at the time, he was a state representative. So it's like the equivalent of being an MP. And he was a state representative, Bill Cass. His brother was a coach for our team, and he was Detective Richard Cass for the Wakefield Police Department. And then there was another assistant coach who was Jim Smith. And he was Detective Jim Smith for the town next to us, Melrose, for the Melrose Department. Anyway, they're the ones that gave me my chance. I was with my age group up until then, and they saw something in me where I didn't know it at the time. You know, my parents didn't, you know, nobody really knew it, I don't think. I sure as hell didn't though. And they saw something and wanted me on their team. And they didn't have to do that. They could have picked other guys. I mean, honestly, they could have picked out of hundreds of other guys. And they picked me. And Jim Smith, particularly for the team, who's one of the coaches, really, really good guy. I would see him for years after, and we would stop and have 30-minute conversations, you know. And you know, he kind of, I don't want to say he took me under his wing, but he told me what I was good at, told me how to basically exploit it and use it for my benefit. And he helped me do it. So he didn't just tell me and try to do something like that. He helped me build confidence in doing it. And he's the one that moved me from right field. And he's like, the kid's got an incredible arm, and he's not afraid of the ball. Like, what is he doing way out in right field? Like, we need to bring him into the infield because we have a poor infield. And they did that. And I ended up playing third base the rest of my baseball life. You know what I mean? And I mean, I was much better once than I am now, but I also didn't have the belly I have now, you know. But I'd say Bill Cass, who drafted me, and Jim Smith. Those are two. The third one's tough. The third one, I had. I know this is gonna sound kind of funny. I had all right. So we had a trainer in high school, in my high school when I played varsity ball, and his name was Gus, and he was our trainer. This Italian guy, very loud. You think I'm loud? He was very loud. He swore all the time. He was rough. He was rough. But a lot of schools started floating with the idea of using cortisone shots for temporary fixes for injuries. And he was 100% against it. He wasn't a doctor. He had no medical degree other than, like, first aid, CPR, and like some physio. He was just a trainer, and he kept that out of our school, and got to give him props. He's also the first person that I ever met that started trying to teach us that core exercises were necessary for baseball development. You know, who cares how big your muscles are, all this stuff, right? And all that. So that would be my third. My fourth would definitely be my papa. 100% would be my papa. The last time I ever saw my papa, last time was on a Sunday afternoon. And so at the end of my papa's life, my nana was already passed away for about 16 or 17 years. So when he got older, he ended up moving in with us in like an in-law apartment. That's what we call it in America. Just basically a fancy way of saying you live downstairs, you have your own apartment downstairs of our house with your own private entrance. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So he lived down there, and in the summertime, in the springtime, nice weather. When it's nice weather, he would always have his screen door shut, but his wooden door open, so you can get the breeze. And that was where his living room and his couch were. Anyway, what my puppy used to do, and I honestly, I have this memory like it was yesterday, for my entire life, as long as I can remember, he always had his score sheets, the scorecards, and he'd watch the Red Sox and keep score. And he watched everything. 2004, World Series and stuff. I watched one of the games with him, and I was saying how I wish I was there. I wish I was there at Fenway Park. And he's like, why? He's like, we got the best view in the house. He's like, we're watching on TV. There's not a better view than what I'm watching. Like, that's where his mind was. But anyway, the last time I ever saw him, he was filling out his scorecard, watching the Boston Red Sox Sunday afternoon. I stopped in, I said hello to him, and then he passed away about 3 days later. But that was the last time I saw him. And that's the memory. Apparently, the first time I ever saw him, he brought me a Red Sox hat and a baseball glove. The last time I did ever see him, he was watching the Red Sox. And I mean, what can you say? He saved every single clip. He didn't even live in our town. He lived about 30 minutes away when I was growing up and I was in high school and stuff. This is before he moved in with us. And he used to drive down just to get the Wakefield item. You know, when my name would, once I got into high school and it would be in like the Boston Herald or the Boston Globe, he can get that at any store. But
Yeah.
any of the local town papers, he had to come down and get, and he was probably my biggest fan for baseball, you know. Other than my mother, he was probably my biggest fan. So I'd say those would be my three influential, Mount Rushmore people.
They're brilliant.
That was a good one, man, because if you would ask me a Mount Rushmore question on players, I had that all day. That was a good one.
Yeah, I think it sort of gives people. I just really like the question. I mean, you can do top five. Top fives are easy. Top threes are even easy, but picking four, you're adding one from something, you're missing out another, and it just it's really nice to give some mini shout outs to people that have meant something to you along the way. It's just a really nice thing. I heard it on another podcast, and it was just beautifully done. And I was like, I need to plagiarize it and incorporate it into mine, just because the responses that I've heard from people have just been really, really interesting. I don't know about your papa. It's like you can tell how much he meant to you just by the way you talk about him. Like, yeah, it's beautiful to see. What's the best bit of advice he gave you?
I don't know. To be honest, the thing about my papa, it's hard. My papa wasn't he was a World War II vet and in the army and stuff like that. He was a very quiet man, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Advice, I can't sit here and say that he's never given me advice. He would have. Nothing really, nothing specifically stands out. I think what more of it is he was always available, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
My mother was juggling me and my two brothers while my dad was trying to, run this business. And sometimes my dad would work 7 days, and my mother had two other boys that played two other sports. And my papa was like, "Yeah, what time's Jake's game? I'll take him. When's he going? How far is it? Where is it? Oh, is it really? It's in New Hampshire today. It's in Salem, New Hampshire. All right. Well, I'll pick him up at this time then." And he was never afraid. You know what I mean? He was always available. They weren't silent car rides. It wasn't anything. I was never uncomfortable. It was nothing like that. But it was like, even when I saw him play, even when I saw him the last time, I stopped in and I said hi to him. And I didn't know it was going to be the last time. My papa wasn't sick or anything like that. He was sitting there and he was doing his scorecard in his game. And I've seen him do it so many times that I didn't even have to bring up the fact that he was doing it. It was almost like just night and day. It it was as normal as drinking water and breathing air. Seeing him sit there. Not to mention that he had all the games that have already been played that season, underneath on the bottom shelf of his coffee table. And then he had his notebook for the next additional games just sitting on top of it with his crosswords. I think it was more of just the fact, it's less about what he said and more in the actions
yeah,
that he showed me, if that makes sense.
yeah.
You know,
What was your favorite game that you watched together?
all right. I did watch the Aaron Boone in 2003 in game 7, when the game hit the game winning home run. And we watched that. And I remember I was really upset because we got to game 7. If we won that, we would have been in the World Series. And my papa just said, "Well, maybe we'll do it next year." And I thought it was the biggest, like, load of shit. Like, what do you mean? We never get this far. And then the next year we did it, you know. Um, I got to watch, was it 2007, when we beat the Cardinals. I watched, it was might have been game 1 when we played the Cardinals. I watched that um, with him and my buddy Larry Muse. And we sat there, and my papa was the type of person where he always thought Larry was the little troublemaker, but he accepted him. Does that make sense? So he allowed him
Yeah,
in the house and we watched the game and we did a thing. But yeah, I mean, we used to go on vacation down to Cape Cod, and in the summertime, we'd go down there and we got to watch some of the games in the Cape Cod League. And my papa, after my Nana died, my papa would come down, and those were really nice times, because it wouldn't just be me and my papa, you know what I mean? But we'd all go out as a family, as a family. We'd go. We don't know any of these players. Jason Varitek played back then. I saw him play before he was big. Nomar Garcia Parra, Alex Rodriguez. They all played in the Cape Cod League before they were pros. And I'm not gonna lie, A-Rod became my favorite player for about 2 years, only because when I heard he got signed, I remembered watching him in the Cape Cod League. So it was almost like a biased thing, like, oh, I already saw him play, blah, blah, blah. That obviously changed. But I mean, yeah, I got to see a couple World Series games with them. And we did go to a game when Josh Beckett was on the team. Because I remember Josh Beckett pitched. It was against Toronto. It was very hot out, and in the first 2 innings, Josh Beckett gave up like 8 runs. It was depressing. But him and I, that was the only game I ever went with him.
Yeah.
Was that game. Yeah. But that's really it. But I watched a lot of games with him. I did. And it wasn't a scheduled thing. I wasn't like, oh, the Red Sox are on, I'm coming down. It always just happened to be, I would just stop in. You know what I mean? And there he is watching the game, and I would just sit down and watch. You know what I mean? And that's just how it was.
Yeah.